Come with me.
Hello, I'm Kat from Aussie Gaming. I'm here today interviewing Mariana, the designer from Foxo Games, about their upcoming game, Cyborgs Earth Twin. Hi, Mariana.
Hi.
For the benefit of the viewers, why don't you tell us about your game?
Sure. So Cyborgs is really about combining collaboration and competition together. And the challenge is to kind of mix that up and then see how people react to being forced to switch teams. So the idea is that you start off as a player in a team, either a cyborg or an earthling, and you're kind of battling over a planet. And in the course of, competing for this planet, you can either be converted to a cyborg or set free a cyborg and become part of the Earth crew. So that's kind of the game in a nutshell. It's a strategic game, and it's got cards and roles. I think it's mostly strategic with a little bit of luck, mostly on the strategic side.
The next question to ask is, what has it been like working on the Cyborgs game?
Well, it's certainly been fun, and it's been challenging as well in ways I didn't expect. So I actually thought I had a near-ready product about a year ago, so that was pretty naive of me. And I sent it out for what I thought was final testing and ended up, pretty much revolutionizing the game completely and changing a lot of the rules. But the feedback was really great. I got some amazing feedback from people all over, other designers, passionate board gamers, and I really valued that. But one of the things I learned from this game was not to be overconfident about where I am in terms of getting a finished product. So yeah, that's been an interesting experience. But honestly, I've had a blast with it, and just I really like stuff like logic puzzles and problem solving. So for me, creating this type of game has been a lot of fun. I really enjoy that kind of problem solving. So when someone gives me feedback and I have to think of creative ways to make it work, that's a lot of fun. Yeah, that sums up the past, oh gosh, what has it been? Almost 2 years now. Yeah.
Wow, awesome. You've been working on the game for 2 years.
Well, it started off as an idea that I actually shelved. Originally, I wanted to do a bit of an experiment to get people to play against an AI. So it was meant to be one team was a group of human players, and the other team, the cyborgs, was actually going to be like a machine learning algorithm. So I was going to do that for a bit of fun. But I decided in order to get the AI working, I wanted to see how the rules would work, and then I realized, well, it's actually a lot of fun to have two groups and see how two groups of people interact. So that's kind of how the game evolved.
You said initially you wanted an AI versing a team of people, and you changed this later on so that it was two teams of people. I suppose that came from some sort of inspiration. And so what really inspired you to make the game itself?
I've always loved puzzles and problem solving, so that's one thing. Yeah, there are a few components. I've always liked robots and artificial intelligence and machine learning, so I'm really into that as well. So that was, in terms of themes, I love space and robots, so that's where the theme was inspired. And in terms of gameplay, I'm really fascinated by collaboration in gameplay. I wanted to, as I mentioned earlier, play with the idea of competition and collaboration and see how groups of people respond to being put in different situations where they're collaborating 1 minute and perhaps competing the next, and having to adjust to that, seeing how people respond. So that was a bit of fun for me as well. Yeah, so that's been the inspiration.
Cool. Have you worked on many other games with Foxo Games?
Yeah, so I am working on a card game. I finished another card game. The card game that I finished, well, when I say finished, see, I shouldn't say that because meaning I got it up to the point where it's ready to do some serious play testing. and that was called Naked Politics. So that game is it's a very different game from Cyborgs, and it's quite, I guess, simplistic by comparison in that the rules are pretty straightforward. It's a really quick and easy game to learn, and it's certainly not as strategic, though there definitely is a strategic thread to it. So I actually sent that off I had a publisher interested in that one, but I'm not sure where that's going because that was about a month and a half ago. So I'm not sure if they're going to pursue that game or not. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see. Either way, I'd be really grateful for the feedback from a publisher. I think that would really help me out regardless of the outcome. But even getting an initial enthusiastic response was really encouraging to me. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So I've got this other game that's called Naked Politics and Cyborgs, and I'm working on a third game, but that doesn't even have a title yet, so it's very much in the conceptual stage, and I'm just working through the basic rules right now.
What led you into making games?
I started off doing children's games, and I realised that and digital children's games. So the kind of games that I wanted to make for children were really complex and took a long time to code and a lot of money. So either I had to learn to code it myself, but what I really realized through the process of that is what I loved. And this is going back to like my own childhood growing up. I love those kinds of games where it takes you on an adventure and you have to solve problems along the way, like Myst. I don't know if you remember that game. That's like a really, really old game. But those are the kinds of games that I really loved. Yeah, in terms of the digital space. And then a couple of friends introduced me to board gaming a few years ago, strategic board games, and I was never into, just simple card games or anything like that. So I didn't think I'd be into it, but I really loved it, and I especially loved Pandemic and Ticket to Ride, and I thought, wow, this is awesome. Why didn't I get into this before? So, it opened up a whole world of games for me that I didn't even know I really loved. Since then, it's been, a steep learning curve, learning mechanics of gaming, because it's a lot of it obviously is quite different from kids' digital games. But I think I've really found my niche in strategic games, at least in terms of finding what I really love to do.
Obviously, you've progress on Cyborgs. You've been working on it for a couple of years. You've completely rehauled it from your initial idea.
Yeah.
And any other progress you've been making on it?
Yeah, so I got some fantastic feedback at PAX, and I did update. So I've updated the rules and, rejigged it again. And then what I want to do now is get some reprinting, and I need to do at least another 2 rounds of testing. So because it's the first game I'll be releasing, I'm really, wanting to make sure that I've, double and triple checked everything and really tested it out. And because I'm really nervous about getting it right. I actually planned for it to be out in February, but you plan optimistically and then kind of life happens. And I've had a series of personal, incidents and things like everybody else over the last few months that have taken away my focus somewhat, unexpectedly and beyond my control. But I'm back on it now, and I really, really want to get it finished this year and out this year. So I don't have an exact date, but I think I'm getting pretty close to getting it where I want. Yeah, the next step is really deciding whether I really want to do Kickstarter or try and find a publisher. So I think I'll make that decision in the next 2 months after I've done the final play testing.
During the development of the game, have you learnt any tips or tricks that you want to pass on to other developers?
I've actually learned a lot in the last, few, especially the last few play tests, because the first bit was just getting the basic mechanics right and making things fit together, and then it's when you get feedback when it's unexpected, like you think it's a finished product and then someone comes at you with feedback that you're like, oh, why didn't I think of that? That's, that's the real gold. So one of the things that I really learned is sometimes you think you need to simplify your gameplay because people aren't going to get it or it's too hard to explain the rules. But one of the main things I've learned is that if your rules fit your world, and also if you can somehow explain the rules visually and provide visual and other shortcuts like a playing mat and really clear cards and instructions, then you still can have a somewhat complex gameplay. And to me, keeping the game somewhat complex is important because, at least maybe I'm just building it for someone like me, but the games I like are more complex because if they're too simple, then I get bored faster. So if it's a more complex game, then kind of every time you play it, it's a bit different. So that's what I wanted to maintain. And I really thought I'd have to compromise some of that. But what I did instead was simplified the visuals, improved the language, and made little things like a mat to improve the experience and the time it takes to learn the game. And that's made a big difference. And the other thing I learned, which is really important, and I didn't realize until the last few rounds of testing, once you get most of the rules right, I think, you realize that there's lots of little annoying things for players that disrupt flow during the game. So they'll get into it and then something's, some stupid thing that you've done in the game, like, a sentence that doesn't quite work, or, having a rectangle instead of a square on the board. It seems like a really trivial thing, but actually it's not, because if it disrupts a user from really getting immersed in the game, it really needs attention. And there were a lot of little things like that added up to like a big user experience thing that I had to change. So that was a real learning experience for me. Yeah, and I guess the other thing I learned generally is not to be as optimistic about where I am in terms of having a finished product. So yeah, I've definitely learned that lesson. I really thought I was ready to go a year ago. But yeah, the learning experience as a designer has been worth it. I think I'm a much more skilled designer than I was a year ago, and I still have a long way to go, but definitely learning, and that's part of the fun.
You mentioned before that you're looking towards putting Cyborgs to a publisher or a Kickstarter. Obviously, if you go down the publisher route, the publisher's going to have a big hand in what happens from there. But if you go down the Kickstarter route, do you have ideas for how that's going to go?
For me, as a brand new designer, initially I was thinking Kickstarter is the way to go because it gives me, it's the path of least resistance and gives me total control over the product. So I was leaning that way. And then when I thought about it some more and also did a lot of research, I realized a couple of things that have made me reconsider. I haven't made up my mind entirely, but I'm not a marketing expert, right? And I have spent a lot of time over the past year learning how to market. I still don't think I'm anywhere near being an expert, but I've definitely done a lot of courses and, stuff like that. So the question that came out for me as a result of that is, do I want to be a marketer? And going through Kickstarter definitely means you have to spend a significant amount of time learning and utilizing those skills. And honestly, I'd rather be designing games. Not that I hate marketing, it's just that it's not my foremost skill. And, the other stuff like shipping, same goes. You got to get all the, there's a lot of coordination and stuff like that. But yes, you retain all the control, and that's a nice to have. But on the other hand, for a new designer, that kind of experience, obviously they know what they're doing because they've been publishing games and I've published none. So, that kind of experience would be really valuable, and the feedback and so forth. So, yeah, I'm still undecided, but I definitely would like to talk to a publisher and see what they think and at least get some feedback before I make a decision.
Do you have any final comments or final bits of information that you want to share?
It'd be great to have more women designers. And one of the things that I've been struggling with, and part of that is kind of my own time limitations, is we've got such a small community in Australia, and it would be great, you know, to connect to other women designers and see what others are doing. But any designers, not just female designers, but it'd be great. I'm very keen on, you know, women in IT and women in game design. I think it's really important. Looking to promote that, but first I feel like I need to set an example by actually publishing something. That's something that would be great if I can encourage other women into game design or into technology or both. That would be great.
Thank you, Mariana. That was Mariana, the developer from Foxo Games. Cyborgs Earth Twin will hopefully be coming out sometime this year, and there are going to be links below to the sites and the Facebook for them, so that you can follow their progress as well. Very much looking forward to it. I myself playtested at PAX last year, and I quite enjoyed it.
Oh, thanks, Caitlin. Appreciate that.